putting it into the blender. This is the slurry contains. The slurry contains gelatin, m4v, a grade of transglutaminase that is pure. Yep, there's TIs here. No glutamine, lysine in the transglutaminase. It's coming from the gelatin. Correct. Seeding the reaction.
Correct.
So we have the substrates coming from the gelatin.
So here he's adding a little bit of carrot puree.
Okay. And the reason we have the gelatin as a seed is that carrots themselves have very low protein levels. Extremely low protein levels.
Correct.
So we have to get the protein in somehow.
Yeah, and that's going to allow us to, in this case, make a sheet, a vegetable sheet. Not vegetarian, mind you, but a vegetable sheet. He's going to go ahead and blend that.
So the blending is to create a homogeneous dispersion, as well as to get the gelatin dispersed with the transglutaminase with the carrot to create a uniform mixture.
Going to get the whole thing mixed together.
So everything right now, the reactions, the enzymatically catalyzed reactions, are beginning here.
Yep.
So there is a time limit with regards to how fast this can be produced.
Yeah, if we wait too long, it'll eventually set, because we've now begun the process.
Absolutely. So we do have some covalent cross-linking or gluing.
Correct.
Happening.
So he's just blending to get it nice and even, nice and homogeneous. He's going to go ahead and throw a little salt in, obviously, for some seasoning purposes.
Clearly a homogeneous solution.
Yeah, it's nice puree. He's just going to go ahead and make one sheet now at this point. What he's going to do, he's going to take the plastic wrap, he's going to lay it out. He's just getting the surface wet so the plastic wrap will adhere to the stainless. And then he's going to go ahead and roll this thing sort of impossibly thin so that you get a sense of the possibility of the sheet.
And again, the interesting transformation is ultimately going from something that's fluid and liquid to something that's set into a film, into a texture that is resistant to physical damage as well as resistant to heat. The use of plastic wrap, of course, is a non-adhesive surface, which will allow the film to actually be peeled off.
Yeah, exactly.
Once it's made.
Very effectively. So you can see what he's doing now. He's just going to
sandwich the puree between two layers of plastic wrap.
Exactly. He's just going to roll it. It's actually more of a push than a roll. It's almost like a drawbar.
Yeah, like a draw-down bar.
Exactly.
Traditional technique to look at the viscosity of paints with a drawdown bar.
Yeah, to make a film. Exactly.
Make a film. Now, is there a particular weight or depth of film that you draw?
Well, he's just done this enough that he knows the
sort of by.
Yeah, you can tell by look. You can put a finger in a couple spots. Just hold that up for a second.
The puree at this point is still a liquid between the two layers of plastic wrap placed on a sheet pan to be then transferred to a refrigerator.
Put this in the fridge. So now the sheet sat overnight.
So the film has been allowed, the covalent reaction has been allowed to occur under refrigerated conditions for at least 12 hours.
Yeah, I mean, we just made that sheet. This is a sheet we made last night.
Yeah.
It's been allowed to sit. He's now going to portion it.
What is interesting, it's easy to handle. In this case, it's still at a refrigerated temperature. The reaction proceeds slowly, but it certainly does proceed. What you have here is ultimately a film drawn between two plastic sheets.
And at this point, it's totally heat stable, thermally irreversible, will not melt.
Absolutely.
just going to trim off the edges, and he's going to cut that into a series of rectangles
Yeah.
and make his ravioli.
So it is important to remember that while this may look like a sheet of rolled dough, none of the ingredients that are traditionally used in a dough are present. We have no flour, we have no gluten, we have no yeast, we have none of the traditional ingredients used, no eggs, starch used to create a film.
Non-farinaceous dough.
Not at all.
Pasta.
This is purely carrot that has been restructured. The architecture of the carrot has been changed. We went from the original vegetable to a puree and now to a uniform sheet of approximately 1 millimeters depth.
Yeah, it's very thin, as you can see.
What will be interesting is when this second layer of plastic wrap is removed, you'll be able to see that it is indeed a uniform film.
Yeah, I mean, these guys roll these all the time, so they're pretty consistent.
Yep.
You know, from end to end, it's pretty good.
From a compositional perspective, nonetheless, this is basically mostly water.
Yeah.
With dispersed carrot puree in there.
Fiber, cellulose.
Very little protein coming from the carrots, all coming from the gelatin.
Right.
It may appear that the texture is coming from basically a thin film of gelatin, but in reality, what we use the gelatin for is just to seed the reaction to allow for the cross-link of those gelatin molecules to then build a three-dimensional structure. Gelatin, of course, is not heat stable. This film, as you will see when we finish the prepared dish, is heat stable.
Correct. You're just getting the dimensions.
If you
obviously, of
wanted
the
to make a
wrapper.
bigger ravioli, you could just cut these.
Sure,
sheets
you could make
bigger.
them whatever size you
Whatever
want.
you want.
Obviously.
You can make a whole plate full of ravioli, like one big ravioli.
We could make a bowl of noodles.
You could certainly.
You could take a bicycle wheel, you know, and
That's
and
exactly
cut it.
right. So you have now a film. As you would do with any type of dough, you can create any type of noodle you would like. You can cut them in small strings. You can cut them into larger linguinis. You can cut them into sort of lasagna sheets.
Yeah.
You could create
Sure. You can make a
carrot
lasagna. out of it.
lasagna.
Yeah. So he's just trying to get all the moisture off because that helps with the adhesion in the wrap.
Now, one thing that should be noted is the enzyme was hydrated warm. The puree was mixed. The enzyme is still active at this point. This has never been heated to above 65 degrees Celsius. So
Correct.
theoretically, there is still some enzymatic activity present here.
But it's probably gone as far as it's going to go.
It's definitely
not going
gone
to
as
get any
far.
firmer because it's been overnight.
It's been overnight, and what is interesting about this is that when you finally fold the ravioli, there may be some enzymatic activity that allows the sheets to stick to themselves.
You think that that's part
That
of it?
could be part of it.
Because it certainly does seal itself in the
It
oven.
does seal itself in the oven.
Yeah. There
You
could be
have-
some tackiness from the gelatin too, right?
Yep, that
Surface
holds to itself.
surface tackiness.
Now, in this case, the filling is prepared from
The filling is Marcona almonds and more carrots.
and more carrots and puree, and there
And
is
some
a
gelatin.
hydrocolloid present in that.
There is gelatin in there, which allows it to be simply portioned.
So in this case,
Now we're going to put that in the oven. This would go in the oven. So he's going to go ahead and assemble the plate now. So on the bottom, he's putting a little bit. This is a dashi broth that's been seasoned with some dried lime and some sake. It's been
Dashi
thick.
broth is a
Japanese soup stock.
Japanese soup stock using seaweed as sort of the base.
Seaweed and bonito flakes.
Bonito flakes.
It's thickened with a little bit of starch, a little bit of modified starch, so you get a
Mouthfeel.
body, mouthfeel. Now he's putting a little bit of granola on top, which is made from rice flakes, ginger, maple syrup, and brown sugar, with a little bit of Berber spice.
Nice textural contrast.
Those are scallops that have been poached at 54 degrees Celsius for 14 minutes. Then they've been thinly sliced, dressed with some lemon.
Are they served warm or are they plated cool?
They're cold.
They're cold. So they've
ambient
been
temperature.
poached and then they've been
Chilled.
Chilled.
Yep. So they have a nice cool flavor, texture. That's just some grated carrot, raw grated carrot.
Was that oil that he?
Pinch of salt and some more
Pinch of
Berber oil.
Berber
Making
oil.
oil
Okay,
from
so
the Berber
spicy.
spice, which is a North African spice blend that would vary from household to household, much like
North African curry.
much like spices everywhere. You know, they kind of vary from household to household. Just putting a little bit of grated raw carrot on there because we have carrot in a couple forms on the plate. It's nice to bring it just in its natural raw state back to the plate. So
Three different
everything,
flavors of
so
carrots.
everything's not modified, and you know that there's some elements
Tie
in
back
there.
to the original ingredient.
Exactly.
Raw carrot.
Exactly. Got some pea shoots there, peas and carrots.
Peas and carrots. Yes.
Fine combination.
This isn't your grandmother's peas and carrots.
So he's going to grab the raviolis out of the oven. So that's the ravioli. It's come out of the oven. The center is poke it ever so gently.
It's a liquid encapsulated in a film.
Correct.
And again, what is very important to note is, while this film was produced using gelatin, we have it at a very warm temperature, well above body temperature, and it hasn't melted.
Correct.
That heat stability is being conferred by the cross links between the glutamine and the lysine moieties of the gelatin, which was used to seed the reaction.
Correct. Again, what's interesting about this preparation, now he's going to just put a little bit of Berber oil on the top. Then move the sizzle platter out of the way. That's it. What's interesting about this preparation, again, is that unlike the other applications where we're using the protein inherent in the product, carrot has no protein. So we're adding protein to it.
We're going to add protein to it. And it is telling that the internal gelatin-based puree is liquid, while the outside transglutaminase-mediated gelatin reaction is heat stable. So we have a liquid and a solid form of the same constituent starting points.